the consolation prize wasn't a bad one when you had Phillip Rivers playing for the Chargers, so you swapped 1 and 3. That kind of worked out. But now you have Joey Bosa, with the Chargers, who you wonder if they'll ever get to a Super Bowl. So you talk about players and ironies, and then you have a lot of them that tend to really occur like this one. So, we bring some unique perspectives. What do you want the readers for the South Florida Tribune to take out of the story that you wrote?
I just wanted to take out the overall excitement of the game, how ironic it is, just how everything comes together full circle, like you just said, and just to recognize his talent, like Mahomes' talent, like realizing how good of an athlete he is, like just being able to play professional sports in two different types of games like baseball and football, and just how exciting this is going to be. Anything they get out of it, I'm happy with. Not something specific, but just enjoy the story. How it is. That's about it. Just just getting some kind of thrill out of it, and wow, this is amazing. This is interesting. Something like that.
And again, you can find that story at www.southfloridatribune.com. Look up Damon McKnight.
And Damon, why don't you go ahead and let everybody out there know how they can identify you on Twitter?
So it's at Damon with a capital D, KN, capital K, 1993, 0409.
So if you can't remember, write it down.
Yes. I'll try to sum it up, a little bit, cut a couple of digits off,
Oh, that's okay. Doesn't matter. People find you once they tag you enough times, then it automatically comes up as a frequent. So all they do is identify your name, and you ultimately get it.
And Damon, what you could start doing is on the bottom of your stories, you can put your Twitter handle on there, so that people can, if they want to read up more and look up more what you've done, they can.
Anything you want to ask them otherwise, Candy?
No, just keep writing good stories. I enjoy putting them up.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I think one of the things I enjoy about your columns is they're very good columns because you talk about a lot of the trending things, and I think that's what people nowadays are looking for: trending, interesting topics.
Yes.
So, all right, well, Damon, I'll tell you what, glad to have you on our special edition, Super Bowl edition here on the Sports Exchange, and we look forward to having you another time as you are a contributing columnist. Therefore, we bring you on. So, meanwhile, have yourself a great weekend. Send our best to our friends at the Highland House Restaurant up in Highland, Michigan.
I will.
And once again, great job. So, Damon Knight, a South Florida Tribune correspondent. Thanks for being on the show, Damon.
Thanks, Damon.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Scoop. Yeah, thank you, Candy. Have a good night.
You too.
Yeah. Bye.
So, Candy, you got a multi-sport guy like Patrick Mahomes, as we seem to have developed a theme here about these types of people. Which one in your mind with these multi-sport guys stands out the most?
I guess because I remember Bo Jackson and Michael Jordan, both of them. I mean, I think there's a lot. I think in our history, there's a lot more multi-sport athletes because I think nowadays, from such a young age, everyone is focused on one sport and perfecting that one sport. That they're not multi-sport dimensional like they used to be. I think if you're a multi-sport, you're multi-dimensional, and I think it only enhances you as an athlete, even in your individual sport that you choose to pursue. But because so many people want to be specialized these days, that I think it takes away from you performing to your ultimate level. But I think there's a lot of people that we would be surprised if we looked back in history to see that they were drafted by two different sports, but they just chose one. So they were technically multi-sport back in the day, but they chose to only pursue one. Honestly, I'll say this. I don't have any kids, but if I had a kid, I love football, but I don't love the violence, the concussions, all of that, would I sway my kid to go to football? I'm not sure. If they loved football, then obviously. But if they're choosing between two different sports, would I push them to football? No.
Don't worry, you're not the first person that said that. So, very good point. Bob Costas has gone on saying that, he's had enough of pro football, and here's a guy who's a baseball magnet anyway. So, a lot of people, now that they've uncovered a lot of the stats that you alluded to before about the concussion problems that have risen, and again, we're talking about a game nowadays where there isn't as much contact versus when I first started covering the game. Even when I wasn't covering it years ago, as I've told you before, I saw Chuck Hughes, the former Detroit Lion, die in the field. Now, that was not a football-related injury.
Right.
That was something else. But to date, that's the only time that an NFL player has died on the field. If I want to take that to another level, okay, with Chuck Hughes, you can also talk about Mike Utley, who played for the Detroit Lions at the Pontiac Silverdome, who did suffer a career ender, Reggie Brown, another one. So, and this is back in the day where the turf, you had artificial surface or you had natural grass and nothing in between. Now you got field turf, which certainly cushions the blow. And what field turf is made out of is you have sand and retreaded rubber, so it certainly makes it a lot easier. And the more and more turf that's installed to improve the process, it makes it easier. But I don't care what anybody says. Football is a violent sport.
It's a contact sport.
Yeah, it is. A very big contact sport. And it doesn't. How many times have you seen a guy get carted off the field and all of a sudden he's done for a long time?
Mm-hmm. And how often do you see that in any of the other sports?
Right.
I mean, it is don't get me wrong, it does happen. We've seen basketball guys. I'll never forget the one where they show that, I don't forget the player, I can't even tell you the teams, but I remember he came down hard and you could even see one of his bones, they were saying. I don't remember.
I think it was Paul George, wasn't it?
I think it was.
Yeah, in fact, I think he did that during the Olympics, and as a result, it did cost him a season. But fortunately, he was able to make a sufficient comeback with Paul George. Yeah, I mean, basketball players are undoubtedly some of the best athletes on the planet with the amount of running around that they have to be. So you definitely, in terms of athleticism, but yeah, you're right.
I'm guessing a sport that I will honestly say I don't follow as very much, but they have to be in really good condition, would be soccer.
Oh,
American soccer. I mean, they're running around for how long, and they actually have physical activity and kicking and all that. I know you're not supposed to kick, but you're using, But that's a very physical sport. One of my favorite sports would also be would be tennis. You have to be in an extreme amount of condition for that, especially if you're playing singles. And these guys now that are playing, 3-set matches and they're tiebreakers, and the third set doesn't end, and they're playing 3-4 hours straight. Football is it's a 60-minute game. It's not 3-4 hours like a tennis match is.
Well, let's talk about soccer. You made an interesting point. Back in the day when I was covering the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, my good friend Chip Namias had a game where you had the Fort Lauderdale Strikers front office versus the media, and I played in that media game. And you know what? We weren't on a large soccer field. We were on one of the practice fields. Mm-hmm. And, I'm thinking, and I suffered a sprained ankle because somebody took me out there and yours truly landed in the hospital. And I was on crutches. And ironically, I was on crutches when I had a chance to spend more time with Don Shula covering the Dolphins. And I will never underestimate how fit you have to be to play the game of soccer. I can appreciate what they're coming from. And whether or not I care for tennis or not, because it's really not one of the things I've done. I do know that the sport has a rich history, and when you go 3 to 5 matches with these marathon matches that we've seen over the years, I certainly appreciate the athleticism for which tennis does go ahead and produce. So anybody that can't appreciate the condition, but soccer to me is one that, even when you play in a media game with the Strikers like it did, don't take that sport for granted. Don't take any sport for granted, because you have to be in top-notch physical condition to be able to survive over a sustained period of time.
And to reach the levels that we're watching now, like in the NFL. I mean, you're at the top of the top of the top of the top. You know, there. If you think about it, there's how many athletes that go into high school and play high school football. And then you go, there's how many colleges.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, then there's the NFL. And how many teams are there? And how many teams that play this certain position? Because if you think about it, there's, 32 teams in the league, correct?
Right. Now you can add another 8 more with the XFL coming up as well. So there's more jobs out there for more probability of injuries.
So there's 32 quarterbacks. And now you're gonna have a backup. So that's 64.
Right. In some cases, you might have a third one. So,
but yet there's how many high schools out there? So how many quarterbacks actually make it from a high school quarterback to an NFL quarterback?
Well, I can tell you my math isn't great, but I can tell you that number isn't very good either.
Exactly. So the best of the best of the best. And this weekend, we have the best of the 2019-2020 NFL season happening next weekend down in Miami.
Right. And for anybody that really cares, the Pro Bowl's on tomorrow night. I won't be watching it. I doubt I will. I probably might favor in your direction with crime shows, unless social engagement tends to get involved. But it doesn't matter. But I understand your point, without a doubt. And the odds are definitely long when it comes to those positions. And, think about it. You're talking about 120 some odd 130 Division I, as I call it, schools. Mm-hmm. But don't forget about those levels in Division, the FCS, 2, 3. Yeah. So, you talk about 300-400 college playing the game. Yeah, you better hope and pray you're good enough to even sniff an all-star game, or that you had enough good scouting all over the planet to go ahead and be able to get anybody's attention. And I think that's key.
Not to crush any kid's dreams, though. If that's your dream, go for it. But you gotta work hard, and you gotta be the best of the best of the best to get there.
Right. Well, I'll give you an opportunity for a moment to plug your alma mater, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. They've had a pretty good run of success on the Division III level.
We are Division III level, yes. I want to say about 2 years ago, we took divisions in all 4 of the major sports. We did baseball, basketball, football. I think it was 3, but it is my alma mater. I can't say enough good things about it. It's not just me that's graduated from there in my family. We have our own history. We go back to my parents and even my grandpa before it was a college. It was a normal school, and he graduated from there, and my uncle graduated from there. But it's been a real rich history of the football, especially the football program.
Well, not only that, Lance Leopold, your last coach, ended up getting a job at the University of Buffalo, and I think that Lance Leopold's a guy that, to me, will get one of those better jobs down the road. So you've had some pretty good coaches that have gone on to do a lot of things, and I don't care if you're on Division 1 or 2, 3, it doesn't matter. So meanwhile, our next guest here on the Sports Exchange is former New York Giants offensive lineman Bill Winters. And Bill, you're on the air with Scott Morganroth and Candy Ebling.
Hey, good morning, you two. How are you?
Is it morning? Bill. It's afternoon, morning. Who knows what it is? It's earlier than normal time frame. Good stuff.
How are you, Bill, today?
I'm doing great, Candy. And you?
I'm doing wonderful. Having fun here on this program, talking a lot of sports today.
Oh, we're going to light it up, Bill. All right, well, glad to have you back on our special edition of the Sports Exchange, Bill. So let's go ahead and talk about one of the things that I think that you, if anybody has an opinion on, you definitely do. NFL concussions are up slightly in 2019. Let me give you the numbers, okay, over the last few years. We'll go back to 2017 where they had 281. 2018 they had 214, and then they spiked by 10 in 2019. I think a few other things that I should point out that from 2015 to 2017, there was an average of about 266.3, and obviously they reworked the kickoff rules, illegal for players to lower their heads to initiate contact with the opponents, and I think touchbacks bring the ball back to the, I believe, 25-yard line. So I think they're trying to definitely go ahead and, make the game safer. But what are your comments about the concussion situation, Bill?
Well, it's the same old, same old. They're doing a better job of trying to protect the players a little bit. But, this is a violent game. So they're going to have guys getting their bell rung during the course of the game. So I think they're doing a good job at it. We're just going to